Of all the natural wonders on Earth, no poetry can express or pictures capture the full wonder of Africa. We dominate our planet with our cities and our way of life. From our primitive beginnings, we have evolved into the Earth's fiercest predator. We consume the Earth we inhabit. We carve out our landscapes. We dominate and master everything that stands in our way. We have increased beyond our ancestors' imagination and learned to tame and harness other creatures for our own ends. Yet, there are a few animals who defy our domination and pay the price. Of all these independent creatures, there is none as colossal as the elephant. Elephants are the definitive animals of all Africa. A land that was once an elephant paradise, with its woodlands and its sweet savanna, its lush riverbanks with its nutritious grasses, its waterholes that never ran dry, even in the driest of times. Much of Africa has now been changed by human habitation. The farming of lands once roamed by elephants, that once was the domain of the elephant. In Africa today, elephants are simply viewed as competitors for the land. In other continents, they are mere curiosities, valued for their ivory. This land, present-day Africa, which once was an endless wilderness of changing landscape, where humans evolved alongside an abundant range of wildlife, now a fraction of what it was. Conservationists are struggling to preserve what is left. The main strategy is to involve local communities in realizing the benefits and profits of conservation and ecotourism. It's a hard, frustrating, and ill-rewarded struggle that's being fought. Tribal cooperation is the key to Africa's conservation health. It's vital that rural children in villages, kids who live in the bush, but who have never seen an elephant, become the eco-warriors of tomorrow. To understand the hidden spirit and kind nature of elephants, we need to accept that elephants are emotional, caring, and extremely intelligent, and that they desire good relations with humans.
Now I've seen, perhaps you've heard of the last free Roman herd. You prefer to watch TV, don't you? Don't you? Down they go, the old, the young, on the run, the poacher's gun. Hunter kings are shouting, elephant. We ship them in from Timbuktu, cage them in our far-flung zoos, majesties and beauties wilder, wilder. Chained them in to circus rings, made them dance and made them sting with our whips and whispered elephants. How much you care for all of this? Cried and wondered what I missed. Shedding tears all through the beer, and as their days finally are, sun goes down on my heart, nothing on my lips.
The truth is that we, as humans, do not care for elephants or understand them. Locals who have never seen an elephant before, as they're driven into new areas, think that they will eat their crops. The safety of their children who fetch water will be at risk. They worry about the young herd boys doing a man's work looking after the cattle alone. They don't know elephants. So these farmers build fences to keep the elephants from eating their vegetables, their maize crops, and trampling their fields, as they rely on these crops to feed themselves throughout the year. These electrified fences are meant to keep the elephants in the national reserves, rather than keep them out of the fields. In the wild, if the fences are too short, elephants don't respect the megavolt punch the fence packs. Elephants figure out that it is possible to endure the shock for the few seconds it takes to snap the fence. Once this happens, they never fear electricity again. Elephants are smart enough to know that a small nondescript battery hidden in a thicket is the source of the current. They trample it like a plastic bottle, return to the boundary where the wires are dead, shoulder the poles, and upend them like matchsticks. The habitat of elephants is immensely varied, from the vast forests of acacia trees and mopane that grows thickly with interwoven thorn-studded branches that are supple and as vicious as whips. It's a ferocious tangle of tortuous thicket, pretty to look at, but deadly to humans. The knife-sharp thorn barely scratches an elephant's hide, but to us humans, it's like a maze of fishhooks. Close up, elephants are magnificent. They tower over you. They have thick, wide eyelashes, hundreds of wrinkles etched across their bodies. The broken tusks, their soft eyes drawing you into their world. They gently extend their trunks to smell, to sense, and it seems the most natural thing in the world. They possess outstanding communication skills. They make stomach rumblings far below the register of human hearing that can be detected even when they are many kilometers apart. An individual picks up these impulses through their enormous ears, or detects them through their feet. We also have to recognize that there are things we will never understand about elephants. They have abilities and qualities well beyond deciphering by today's best scientists. They cannot repair a computer, but elephants have physical and metaphysical communication that is sophisticated and super fast. In some unknown way, they are ahead of us. There is one thing that elephants have lots of, and that is time. Large portions of endless time, spent without the distraction of travel, on urban trains, on a bus, to an office, to sit encased by 4 white walls. Even when there is a juiced bush banquet on offer, they don't rush. They unhurriedly stand, gently wafting with their ears, cooling themselves in the day's heat. An elephant's ears are immense, tablecloth size, and flap as air coolers. Behind each ear, the cartilage structure reveals a vast hinterland of veins that allow liters of blood to be cooled to lower body temperature. They will fell trees and gorge on the juicy top leaves that they would not have reached any other way. During the dry season, when grazing is poor, herds of antelope often shadow elephants for days, waiting for a matriarch to push over a tree. When elephants are approached, they want to know who we are, why we're there, on their piece of land. Wherever you go, dozens of eyes watch. There's a feeling of being under constant scrutiny, being looked at. They take in every moment, missing nothing of what you do. Then the interest wanes, and you too are part of the wild as well. Elephants become used to you. They sense you pose no danger, then they move freely around you. Normally, they are as skittish as any other wild animal, but elephants will also study you as much as you study them. When you get too close to an elephant, they may make a mock charge, and the worst thing to do is run away, as this may spur them to make a real charge. They pull up spectacularly, just a few meters away, in a show of ears, dust, and rage. They shake their heads in anger once or twice, then usually stomp off back to their companions, with their tails angrily erect. So what are you supposed to do when you encounter an elephant on foot? You stop in your tracks. You kind of work out how far away you are from the elephant. If the elephant is not disturbed and continues with its activity, eating, relaxing, sleeping, then you're safe. If an elephant stops its activity, looks at you, smells you with its trunk, it might approach curiously or move away. If they get irritated, though, it will shake its head, kick up dust, swing its trunk, stand tall, hold its head high, spread its ears wide, point its tusks, tusk the ground, and rush forward in a mock charge. What do? Don't run away from the elephant or make other quick movements, because they can run faster than you can. Don't shout at an elephant. Don't throw rocks at an elephant, or it will become angry and attack you. Don't use fire to scare an elephant. Just act respectfully. If after surviving a mock charge, the trunk gets tucked in, the head gets lowered, and an elephant speeds up, the real charge is silent. However, in most cases, an elephant takes flight. It curls up its tail, it may trumpet, and then runs away. But one thing is for sure, never follow. Elephants' eyesight is not poor. How they travel in the dark defies our comprehension. It seems impossible to us to navigate in the dark, impenetrable bush without light. Yet groups can travel endless kilometers through the night and come together in dense bush at a given location. How then did our ancestors survive without keenly developed night vision when the rest of Africa's wildlife has such acute night vision? No scientist has been able to explain how we flourished so spectacularly while our animal competitors had such excellent night vision. Elephants now share the world we have created. Their trails of travel cross our own roads that pass through the vast tracts of bush and grasslands that they roam with Africa's other animals. Only in recent times has it been recognized that elephants are organized in family units of cows and calves, each led by an adult female, the matriarch, and not by a head or sire bull, as it was believed for some time. The bulls live independently of the females, in loose groupings, and associate with the females and calves on an infrequent basis, particularly when a female is in season. Elephants are individually recognizable by their ears. Their ears are generally not smooth on the outer edge and are patterned in a unique way, with U and V-shaped notches, holes or slits, which combine to make each identifiable. The veins in their ears are prominent and uniquely patterned, and are as individualistic as human fingerprints. The combination of ear markings, veins and tusks, whether they're broken, one-tusked, straight or curved upwards or downwards, provides more than enough for us to understand that no two elephants are alike. The family unit consists of the matriarch, who is the leader, and usually the oldest cow. Her male and female calves ranging from newborn to teenager, plus her mature daughters and their calves. The unit may also include one or two sisters of the matriarch, and even cousins or their offspring. The average size of the group varies. It could be 9 or 10 members, or as much as 15, or as many as 24. A typical family unit might consist of a matriarch, 3 calves aged 9, 5 and 1, another female with 2 calves aged 6 and 2, and one of the matriarch's daughters with her own calf, under a year old. In the course of a day, the family unit act as a coordinated group, eating, drinking, and moving from place to place. They will never be more than 50 meters from the matriarch, much of the time closer than that. If they are in thick bush, they keep in contact with their acute sense of smell and their deep stomach rumblings with which they message one another. Elephants make quite a lot of rumblings when digesting vegetation, and they're not shy in expelling gas. But the growling contact calling is distinct. It's made in the throat by the vocal cords. If the family unit becomes alarmed, the group crowd together and present a cohesive front to the potential danger. Like all animals, elephants have evolved family units and kin groups as a defense mechanism against carnivores and man. Faced with a predator, a unit will band together in numbers. Other family units in the area will join them, and together they form a formidable defense force. The young matriarchs splitting from the old form new groups that reduce confrontations with the dominant cow, but by grazing close, they still benefit from the protection of the larger group. Thus, the young matriarch and her group can continue to water, wallow and feed, and still be within communication distance if they run into trouble. Meanwhile, you may ask, what are the males doing while the females are fending off big cats and weapons of man? Although the bulls are often twice the strength and size of the cows, they are not called upon by the family unit to defend them. In the evolved social system, bulls live independently of the cows and calves for most of their lives. A bull joins a family unit only if he happens to be feeding near them, or there's a cow in season, or it's time for migration. Generally, a bull is never with a family more than 4 days at a time. There is no apparent association with an individual bull with any family unit. Most often, a bull will meet a family unit, greet the members, test the females to see if they're in season, and then go on his way. If there's a cow in season, he may stay with the group for a few days. An adult bull usually spends his days alone or with a few male companions, eating, drinking, bathing, dusting, wallowing, resting, and playing. Within the parks and reserves, where they're protected from poachers, the adult bull's life is very pleasant by human comparison. Bulls don't have to worry about any other predator other than man, and they're not restricted in their day-to-day travels like the females, whose freedom is curtailed by the needs of their small calves. In the bull groups, young males meet other young males. They play and fight together to test each other's strength. By the time they are adults, each bull knows the strength of the others and will give way to the strongest. Bulls have been killed in fights, but serious fighting is rare over a cow in season, or disruption in the elephant kin group caused by drought, or migration into their area by elephants fleeing from human conflict or poaching. In undisturbed areas, most adult bull interactions are conducted with politeness and consideration. This attitude is clearly seen at waterholes, where the hierarchy is clearly on show. If a bull is drinking and a dominant bull approaches and wishes to drink from the same hole, the weaker bull will quietly move off and wait for the other to finish. The communication between the bulls at a crowded waterhole is very subtle and consists almost entirely of postural signals. Most elephant groups have definitive home ranges where they roam and live. These overlap with those of other groups, yet there is rarely any indication of aggression between groups, and nothing that could be construed as territorial behavior. This is true for males and females. Most of the family units are resident year on year in an identifiable area. The bulls have larger ranges, which takes them out of the parks and into the wild. At times, strange bulls that have not seen a park before and unknown small family units can appear and spend time with the resident groups before passing on, perhaps following an ancient migration route like their ancestors. While these strangers are about, there is no display of territoriality by the resident groups. The strangers eat and drink peacefully, side by side with the residents. Some even stay on and become residents for good. Above the kin group, there appears to be an even higher level of organization, termed a clan. For scientists, this is still not fully understood. As an elephant's lifespan is close to that of a human, the workings of a clan group is a daunting lifetime study for any scientist and has not yet been fully undertaken. A calf is pinkish in color when born, with a coat of coarse hair covering its torso. It can barely see and follows its mother everywhere by reaching out with its trunk, touching and smelling her. Frequently, it will sink to the ground in exhaustion, want to sleep, but its mother remains constant in her nudging it to its feet. The rest of the group are moving at an exceedingly slow pace, stopping often for the mother and calf to catch up. The calf appears to be looking for its mother's teats, but has difficulty finding them. A female elephant has 2 teats behind its front legs. The calf finally finds a teat, begins to suckle, stretching its trunk over its head and sucking with its toothless mouth. In the first few months of life, the newborn stays constantly with its mother, rarely ever more than a few meters away, and is in endless contact with her, learning, rubbing itself against her, suckling, and being reassured by her trunk. It is often seen under its mother's stomach, between her legs, and it is remarkable that the tiny calves don't get stepped on by their own mothers who cannot see them. Even when the herd stampedes, the calves somehow always avoid being crushed. A young calf is in no real danger from predators, apart from man, because a cow-calf group is a successful defensive unit against any number of lions or hyenas. If, on a rare occurrence, a calf is separated from the family unit during a stampede, then it is bound to be taken by a predator, as it is defenseless. When it's a few months old, a baby elephant becomes more adventurous and soon starts wandering away from its mother. It's at this age that a calf's individual personality starts to show. Many are timid and stay close to their mothers, never falling behind and never getting into trouble. Others are aggressive and full of mischief, wandering away to play with other calves their own age, chasing egrets or guinea fowl, shaking their heads, flapping their ears, and attempting to trumpet. Rather than stay with its own mother, some first-year calves opt to stay with another cow with a calf of its own age. Elephant mothers are very attentive and protective with their calves, and will protect them to their death. But the amount of care they give to their young has been exaggerated in popular myth. You have an idea of the mother elephant constantly fussing and watching over her young, and this is true for the first 6 months. After that, the baby has to take on the onus of responsibility of finding its mother when separated from her. For much of the day, the mother goes about her business of trying to find food for herself, and the calf must just follow along. This involves going over rough and hazardous terrain, near vertical escarpments, into swamps, lakes, and sometimes across deep rivers. A calf must learn to swim at a very early age. It gets on the upstream side of its mother, or an older calf, and keeps as close as possible, remarkably swimming along, submerging and bobbing back up with a snort like a dolphin. The mother and other calves will go to the calf's rescue at any sign of difficulty. Under no circumstances will the mother abandon her calf, however trying. The relationship between a first-year calf and its older sibling is very close. The older female calves often mother the babies, watching over them in a protective stance, fondling them with their trunks. They act as babysitters. During its first year, a calf's diet consists almost entirely of its mother's milk. But it will start eating small pieces of vegetation early on. It's rather comical to observe a little calf attempting to grasp hold of a few blades of grass with its trunk, and then get that grass into its mouth. It may take a long time. The calf is fairly inept with its trunk for the first few months. It sometimes appears not to even know what to do with its trunk at all. Have been known to trip over their own trunks. They also suck their trunks in a fashion that's not unlike a human baby sucking its thumb. A calf is likely to grow 30 centimeters in its first year, though size can vary a lot between males and females in their own group unit. The best indicator of whether a calf is still in its first year is whether it can still pass under its mother. If it's too large, it's in its second year. As the calf grows up, the years between 2 and 12 are spent in learning the knowledge required to survive. And the long childhood of an elephant is comparable to that of a human. A calf's schooling is done in the company of other elephants of varying age, and from its interaction with them, it learns a repertoire of behavior. From greeting gestures to reactions to danger. Small elephants are rarely afraid of humans and vehicles. Their curiosity makes them approach to smell and touch. The older calves have learned to be more suspicious. A calf has to learn to make a living in its environment. The variety of food on offer is vast, and a young calf must learn what is palatable and what parts of the plant to eat. It does so by watching the other members of the group and following their example. The tusks of a 5 to 6-year-old calf are about 15 centimeters long, just long enough to poke a mother's side when trying to suckle. Once a calf reaches this age, its chances of survival to adulthood are very good. The greatest risk is the sun, and hence the importance of shade at the height of the day. Calves are prone to sunstroke, and where the habitat allows, the cows take the calves to find shade. As the afternoon lengthens, they come back out into the open to eat in the night and early morning. Calves often take food from their mother's mouths and thus learn what plants she is eating. As the calf grows up and moves with the group, it acquires knowledge about its range. Where there's water, where the best mud wallows are, where various plants can be found, where to find shade in the heat of the day. If reared in the wild, a calf learns the seasonal migration routes. At 4½, a calf's mother may give birth to another calf. It might be allowed to continue to suckle, but when its tusks get too long, the mother will kick it away or push it. The tusks erupt at about 16 months old, but do not show externally until a calf is about 2½. When on the move, the group's matriarch takes the most prominent position, while the calves squeeze in behind and under the big females. Then they all move with heads up, ears spread out, and trunks up in the air, smelling the wind. If there's danger, one cow may charge, or the whole group may come, a huge grey mass, while the littlest calves shake their heads and trumpet. It's a formidable sight, and a very effective way of seeing off an enemy. Young females reach puberty a year earlier than the males. Around 9 years old, they take great interest in the young calves in the family unit, standing near them, mothering them with their trunks. Simultaneously, they remain in close proximity to their own mothers. The young males start to show different behavior. Their play is much rougher, and they frequently display sexual behavior, mounting other calves, something female calves are never seen to do. The young male's behavior leads to expulsion from the family unit and the breaking of the mother-calf bond. Female elephant reaches puberty. She is still not fully grown. Her growth rate slows down after puberty, but does not level off until she's in her 40s. The maximum weight for a female at age 50 is about 3 tons, and her height at the shoulder about 2.5 meters. The growth rate of a male slows down in his puberty, surges again in his 20s, and levels off in his 40s. The maximum weight at 50 is 6 tons, and his height the same as the female. The heaviest elephant ever recorded was 7.5 tons, and the tallest just over 3 meters. The males who reach puberty at 12 or 13 are quite capable of mating, but they're not yet socially mature and cannot compete with older males for in-season females until they're in their mid-20s. The young females mate during their first season and usually become pregnant immediately. They often have their first calves when they are 13. An elephant has occurrences of must, in which a temporal gland on the side of the head secretes a strong-smelling substance that runs down the side of its face. Because a male elephant can become bad-tempered and unmanageable at this time, it was assumed that must indicated a state of aroused sexual longing. This is a myth. The temporal gland on both male and female, above the age of 2, excretes fluid and does not seem to correlate with sexual activity. The must glands remains a bit of a mystery. It seems to flow when elephants are generally aroused but not necessarily during mating. Exciting and aggressive interaction seems to start the secretion. The side of the face is often rubbed against trees and bushes, and could be an elephant leaving a scent, trail marking out his home range, or at least as leaving its personal marker. Females may be secreting must in order to keep in contact with their own units and kin groups, particularly when there's a high animal density and poor visibility due to thicket and bush. When a female comes into season, she remains with her family unit. Bulls may be attracted to the female by picking up the signs from her urine, and usually, if a bull is in the vicinity, he will test the females. When a bull approaches, he goes up to each of the females, reaches down between her hind legs with his trunk, and gently touches her. He then places the tip of his trunk in his mouth and tests for hormone content. Once a cow reaches maturity and produces her first calf, she is likely to produce further calves every 3 or 4 years for the rest of her life. After the age of 13, unless she loses her first calf, she will most likely be accompanied by one of her daughters until she dies. Most cows are followed by 2 or more calves, and when mature, still companioned by their fully grown daughters. It's normal that when a young cow's calf is around 2 years old, she will come into season again and become pregnant. She will still be suckling her 2-year-old and will continue to do so during her pregnancy. She will continuously lactate during her reproductive years. The shortest calving interval is 33 months, which means that a cow can be pregnant again within 10 months of giving birth. If a cow comes into puberty at 11, it is possible that she could have 15 calves in her lifetime. The longest term between births is as much as 13 years, which means a cow will only have 3 or 4 calves in her lifetime. A cow can continue to have calves until she's 65. Females experience menopause about the age of 55, and as grandmothers are the matriarchs of the family unit. With their accumulated experience, they provide important leadership for the group. In times of drought and danger, their knowledge can be the key to the group's survival. On the other hand, aged males retire completely and prefer to spend their time on their own. In general, sexual activity does not take up much of an elephant's time. Making a living dominates everything. The ritual of day-to-day living that is repetitive, only varying slightly with the change of seasons. Differences in behavior does occur according to habitat. Elephants living in high-altitude forest will not have the same daily pattern as those living in lowland savanna. A typical day may start in the small hours of the morning, when the herd begins feeding after their night's sleep. At daybreak, they will slowly start grazing towards a shaded area, feeding on the move and stopping to drink on the way. If there is a forest or a ravine with thick vegetation in their area, they will head for that and spend the hottest hours in the shade, resting, dusting, and eating small morsels. In late afternoon, the herd will return to open country and eat until around midnight, then go to sleep for a few hours. The most important daily activity is eating. An elephant only digests 40% of what it eats. It needs to eat an enormous amount of vegetation to keep it going. Each day, an adult must eat about 120 kilos of food and may drink up to 200 liters of water. In general, an elephant spends 16 hours a day eating. As such, an elephant's life is one long meal. However, an elephant is a discerning eater. It doesn't just eat everything in reach. Its diet is extremely varied and includes such exotic foods as dates, celery, plums, ginger, butternut, olives, figs, wild coffee berries, and raspberries. There are some things an elephant will not eat, and others it will only eat during a certain season or at a particular growth phase. However, grass makes up 85% of the total elephant diet. Even when there is an abundance of woody browse, grass still makes up the highest proportion of the diet. When water is readily available, elephants will drink every day. They can go without water for several days if they have browse which has a high water content, such as Sansevieria, also known as smoke plant or mother-in-law's tongue. They chew this plant, swallow the moisture, then spit out the fiber. However, they cannot live on this water content alone. In the dry season, many African rivers cease to flow above ground, but continue to do so beneath the sand. Elephants dig down into the sand, make very neat holes, then wait for the water to seep in and the sand to settle out. They demonstrate great patience while waiting for the water to clear. They are undoubtedly very thirsty from having traveled a long distance to drink. Sometimes the calves try to drink before the sand settles, but the cows force them to wait. Finally, they all drink in order of seniority. When they move off, other animals drink from the holes. So the presence of elephants can quite often mean the difference between life and death for other creatures. Elephants bathe in water or mud every day when possible. Bathing can consist of simply spraying water or mud over themselves or by actually submersing themselves. The water and mud cools them and helps to protect them from parasites such as ticks. They appear to enjoy mud wallowing more than any other activity. Often, the whole family unit will get down in the mud, including the no-nonsense females, who will let go of themselves in total delight. They lie down first on one side, then the other, until their ears, eyes, and tusks are covered in mud. Once the wallowing is over, they take dust into their trunks and blow it over themselves, the dust acting as an abrasive when the elephant scratches itself, finding a tree or waiting in line to take its turn. It will scratch at all the places where ticks have attached themselves. The mud and dust on its body acting like sandpaper, as well as protecting it from the sun. The dusting done in the heat of the day makes an elephant take on the color of the earth in that area, no more so than the elephants of Tsavo. The elephants there are not red in color, they are simply covered in the soil of Tsavo, which is a deep red. Resting during the hottest hours of the day, the herd will find convenient trees for shade. Soon, their eyes will glaze over, their ears flap rhythmically, the younger calves sometimes lying down to sleep. Adult females rarely ever lie down during the day, but there are exceptions. The adults remain standing and doze off with their trunks hanging limply. A dozing elephant often drapes its trunk over one of its tusks. This is to avoid letting their trunks touch the life-filled earth beneath them that teems with ants and termites. The siesta usually lasts no longer than 40 minutes before the herd moves on, eating a little, dusting, then finding another tree to take more shade. When it's hot, they will rest on and off in this way until late afternoon, when they emerge into the open and feed vigorously. An adult elephant only sleeps between 3 to 5 hours a day. The deepest hours of sleep occur after midnight. In the dry season, elephants prefer to stay near a permanent water source and browse within a 50-kilometer radius of the water. In the wet season, with plenty of waterholes distributed across their range, elephants roam across vast tracts of land and may abandon their dry season range altogether. In areas sparsely populated by humans, elephants continue the same daily pattern of seasonal movements throughout their lifetimes, and with luck, live out their natural lifespan. Whether in captivity or in the wild, the maximum lifespan is 70 years. Females stay with their family units until they die. They are subject to very few diseases. The main cause of death is when old females wear down their final set of molars. They grow 6 sets of molars during their lifetime. The new teeth grow in at the back of the mouth and move forward to push the old ones out. There are never more than 2 sets of molars in use at any one time. Each new tooth is larger than the one it pushes out. The 5th molar is pushed out when the elephant is 40 to 45 years old, and the final molar set must last the elephant for the rest of its life. When these molars fall out, the elephant starts to suffer from malnutrition, as it can no longer chew hard foods. It's then prone to infection and disease. Bulls also die this way if they get a chance to grow old, but they've been mercilessly hunted for their tusks, and now there are very few bulls over the age of 50. Big tusks are not caused by genetic factors. They grow throughout the lifetime of males and females, so that the older the animal, the larger the tusks. As the male grows older, his tusks grow faster. Exceptionally large tusks can grow to 50 kilos each and are due to extremely fast growth and longevity. In the last stage of a bull's life, he can produce as much as 3 kilos of ivory per tusk every year. The cow's tusks appear to stop growing around 30 years of age. They do keep growing, but breakage and wear keep the tusks at about the same length. They generally weigh less than half of that of the males. If a bull is fortunate enough to escape hunters, he might choose to spend his last years in one of the national parks. There is no doubt that elephants know that they're safe in natural parks and that they know where the boundaries are. They also stay close to water, preferably in swampy areas where the food is easy to chew. An older male is often accompanied by one or two younger bulls. They appear to act as guards. However, the companions of an aged bull make change from day to day, and with this in mind, there is little evidence that there's any planned protection of the older bull. Elephants often bury dead elephants, other dead animals that they find, and even humans that they've killed. They cover the bodies with earth and vegetation. They will examine the bones and tusks of their own species, and will often carry the bones off a couple of kilometers or more from the main carcass. This is a common occurrence in areas where there's heavy poaching.
Becomes dry in the ground. Was 2 years old. My mother died. Mama, where have you gone? Forever alone. Still tearful in this wild, wild world. Ma, where are you? Where have you gone? forever alone. Still tearful in this wild, wild world. Ma, where are you? Where have you gone?
Elephants seem to know that their companions are being killed for their tusks, and that they carry the tusks away and hide them. Tusks have been found smashed against rocks. The myth of elephant graveyards has endured right up until the present day. The fallacy probably arose from large numbers of elephant skeletons being found in certain areas. Many tribes in the past hunted elephants by building a ring of fire around a group or more, trapping the elephants, killing them with their spears, or letting them suffocate or burn to death. Old elephants living near water and soft vegetation often die in these areas. Many skeletons are found near rivers and swamps. This refutes the claim that elephants who die a natural death are never found, and that they must go off to some predetermined place to die. This is not true. Dead elephants are regularly found in national parks. Elephants are aware of death, but they certainly do not slope off to some secret place to die. The overall number of elephants in Africa has declined in the last 100 years, from 20 million to a few 100,000, because of the tenfold increase in the human population. The density of elephants in the national parks has increased, but in the wild, they're almost extinct. Elephants have been blamed for killing trees and changing their habitat to suit themselves. But with the increase of the human population, elephants have been compressed into parks and reserves, and they've had a marked effect on the vegetation, killing mature trees by stripping off the bark or pushing them over to get the foliage that is beyond their reach. With wildfires killing the remaining young trees, elephants have harvested vast areas from woodland into open grassland. Once an area becomes unfavorable to elephants, they move on. But now that they have been restricted in their movements, they can no longer move on, and their effect on the habitat in which they're confined is devastating. Although this is not universally agreed upon, it is believed that before man's heavy intervention on elephant populations, elephants harvested an area to allow grass to grow, and once this grass was exhausted, their numbers decreased and they had to move on and did not return until the woodland had regenerated itself. This process took place over a very long time, as much as a century. Although there is considerable poaching in the national parks, most of it takes place outside, and this in turn drives more elephants into the overcrowded parks and protected areas. As a result of poaching and the increasing human numbers, it's likely that there will be almost no elephants outside of the national parks and reserves in the near future. If elephants are to be preserved, then their future lies in the protected areas. What is essential is to know how elephants shape their environment, particularly in those areas where there are problems. Each park and reserve will have to make an independent decision about its elements relative to the size of the park, the number of elephants, and the kind of habitat. Ideally, such decisions are made locally through observation of the short and long-term effects that elephants have on the landscape and the other animals in the park. There's a lot to understand and a lot of cash needed to be spent. But elephants are very special animals, and they're worth protecting. It would be a great loss to our planet if such intelligent, complex, and splendid creatures became extinct, or worse, relegated to curiosities in zoos. Whether man and these great things can live together is still open to question. Contrary to old belief, an elephant does not give birth in secret places or only at night. She gives birth wherever she may be when she goes into labor. It's rare for a birth to be witnessed by humans because most cow-calf groups will not allow humans to approach at such a time. But now that elephants are becoming used to tourist cars in parks, there are eyewitness accounts of births. The baby elephant is born after a gestation period of 22 months, the longest of any mammal. When a cow is ready to give birth, she stays with the family unit or close by. She's often accompanied by her own calves and by another female or two. The average length of labor is relatively short, 15 to 40 minutes. The mother remains standing, and the calf drops down, hind feet first. The fall will break the umbilical cord, but if not, the mother will sever it with her trunk. The cow or an attendee then frees the calf of the remaining membrane by tossing it aside. The mother may try to help the calf to its feet, and if she does, she gently puts her foot under it and lifts it up, steadying it with her trunk. She then adopts a typical mothering demeanor, pulling the calf lovingly towards her with her trunk and tusks until it's safely under her chin. The weight of a calf at birth is just over 100 kilos, and its height just shy of 1 meter at the shoulder. Twinning does occur, but the instance of this is less than 1 birth in 100. When a female is seen with 2 calves of a similar age, it's impossible to know whether they're twins or not. One of the calves could be adopted, or the 2 calves may have just struck up a friendship and choose to stay together. There's a considerable social structure among elephants beyond the family unit. Associated family units occur close to one another during grazing and resting. Two or more family units often have a special bond and are likely to be related as a kin group. Kin groups are very organized. There's a hierarchy based on size and age. The biggest and oldest, the highest ranking, and smallest and youngest, the lowest. This rank order is clearly seen at waterholes and mud wallows and around felled trees. The biggest females have priority, and the smaller females are pushed aside until the large females finish. Subgroups form out of larger groups dominated by large females. These subgroups, led by younger females, continue to maintain an association with the core family unit until the subgroup gradually begins to move and feed at increasing distances from the main group. Eventually, over several years, the group becomes an independent family unit within the kin group. An adult bull's life seems to be very pleasant. They don't have to worry about any non-human predators, and they're not restricted in their day-to-day movements like the cows. These all-bull herds form loose and temporary groupings with weak social bonds. They are exceptionally easygoing in their manner. Despite their size, they're not prone to fighting or disagreement with other bulls. The hierarchy learned in childhood is well remembered and observed. A bull calf stays with his mother group until he reaches puberty between the ages of 12 and 14. Finally, he's forcefully ejected from the family unit by the matriarch and other adult females, including his own mother. Although male and female calves have mock fights, the males become rougher and more serious in their sparring as they approach puberty. They fight with each other. They fight with other calves in the family unit and with other young males in nearby kin groups. The sparring annoys the adult females and disrupts the family unit, so they're expelled. At first, the young bull follows behind his family group, staying as close as he's allowed. When he gets too close, he's again chased off by one of the large females, who might prod him in the backside with her tusks and inflict a wound. Despite cinema fiction, bulls don't go around trumpeting all the time. They only trumpet when they're highly agitated or excited. When two bulls meet one another, they communicate their intentions by subtle positions of the head, ears, trunk and tail, and sometimes by a movement of the feet. A slight raising of the head and the spreading of his ears by a dominant bull is usually enough to make a subordinate bull back away. If they're friends, a subordinate bull may approach with extended trunk and place it in the dominant bull's mouth. In conclusion, elephants are remarkably adaptable animals. They can live in environments as varied as lush rainforest to near desert. There's certainly enough information available to give an outline of an elephant's way of life, and to explain many of the actions that elude our understanding, to dispel many of the myths. Given that they have a long lifespan, it's best that the picture we've presented is viewed as just part of the story of these elephants that we've walked with.